Welcome ladies and gentlemen, my name's Dychronic, your host here on this Destiny 2 video, and today we're going to be taking a look at my top 10 favorite PvE primaries in Destiny 2. And of course, as always, these are the guns that I like to use. These are the guns that are best for my playstyle. You are obviously going to have your own favorite, so let me know in the comments down below what you like to use. And as usual, I have updated and made my spreadsheet for this video, be seen throughout this video. You can find a link to that, which is fully public for you guys to use, at my Discord server, link in the description down below on the channel #SpreadsheetStocks. Moving on to the main section of the video, let's go ahead and take a deep dive into the spreadsheet. And as you can see on screen right now, this is my spreadsheet. Dark theme, color coded, pictures, recommendations, catalyst information, everything that I can think of is here for all of the weapons I was considering. And obviously, if you don't really care about the reasons why, you can see my top 10 on screen right now and just trust me. And if you do trust me, just go use them. However, it's not going to be in every scenario that you're going to want a 120 or a 140 hand cannon. The reasons why you'd use a certain weapon or why certain archetypes are doing better than other archetypes, even though certain people are talking about new weapons, is going to be very important, especially if you want to go into the high level play, whereas things like scout rifles may not be overall great options. You'll probably see them a lot in Grandmaster. So throughout this video, I'll be talking about these little nuances of what makes certain things important for what they do. However, I will say as kind of a blanket statement that most of these weapon positions are pretty much the same as last time if you saw my last top 10. First up, let's talk about the bows. Now, in my opinion, the bows are currently the worst performing type of weapon in primary ammo. They're famed for basically being a primary ammo sniper. Infinite range, and of course, it rewards precision gameplay. And in the highest level play, you often want to be at high range. And whenever there's artifact mods that have to do with bows, you will often see bows used in Grandmaster Nightfalls because of that range. And there are actually a lot of fun bows as well. Things like Deku with big explosions, or Trinity Ghoul with a catalyst. Bows can be fun. However, if you consider their stopping power and of course their non-ease of use, they do fall apart in a lot of different ways. And to be honest, I'm not really sure what Bungie should do to make them better because they're really not that far off, but they are off. Next up, I wanted to talk about the Vex Mythoclast, the new raid exotic from the Vaults of Glass. A lot of people are really talking about how they really like it in PvE because it shreds red healths. It also has that linear fusion rifle shot, which does help with major stuff. However, again, it's one of those scenarios where it's more of a jack of all trades and not really a master of anything. You can easily match its efficacy with a lot of other legendary weapons, and honestly, special and heavy weapons do better at killing major. And on top of that, I still think that we're currently in a special or heavy exotic meta right now. So there's a lot of other weapons like Wither Horde or Ariana's Vow or Lament or Anarchy that I'd rather use for my exotic slot. Vex Mythoclast, there's not a particular situation I need to use it. After that, we have the Fighting Line, the only current primary ammo grenade launcher in the game, and this is mostly used in wombo combos, or if you need certain bounties done, it's a primary ammo grenade launcher. It's kind of slow, and honestly, special ammo grenade launchers are doing so well these days, I'd rather have a higher damage option. Up in the next major category, we have the scout rifles. As they compare to bows, which I think are the best comparison, they have a little bit less range, but still enough range to do everything they need, and they're a little bit more comfortable, obviously having a much larger clip size. And on top of that, they currently have anti-barrier mods in the current artifact. We also got a lot of really good ones this season, a Kinetic Hung Jury that has an adept version, a Energy Vision of Confluence, which is a good alternative to the Hung Jury in the energy slot, and of course a 200 RPM lightweight Pleiades Corrector, which is the current fan favorite frame. And truly, I would expect a lot of usage from scout rifles in Grandmaster Nightfalls this season, again, because it has anti-barrier mods and it's very safe from long range. The main downsides to scout rifles is firstly, they have low DPS, and honestly, I don't usually need that much range. I have argued many times in the past, the 390 pulse rifles are usually the max range you need in most scenarios. Not in all of scenarios, but in most scenarios. And with that, they also have a very narrow aim assistance cone, whereas at long range, they seem to stick very well and they seem very comfortable, but at close range, they cannot seem to lock on very well at all. And if you're a controller player, you feel this more than anything, which usually means you have to pair it up with something like a shotgun, a fusion rifle, or perhaps even a sidearm, which is not a bad thing. A lot of these weapons are still really good in the current meta, but it does not make them that fun to use, and it does not make them that effective anywhere from the middle to the lower level play. Their real use is gonna be at the highest level, and even then, they're kind of boring. Moving on to the next major category, we have the submachine guns. Now, if you did not know, last season we had a pretty big buff to submachine guns that reduced the camera shake of the weapon, making them a lot more usable, and as a controller player, we definitely felt it the most. Whereas before, they were completely unusable and just really not worth your time, and you had to put every single possible stability mod you could. And nowadays, I actually use it very consistently, and we have some great options like Extraordinary Rendition, Ikelos, and the new Borrowed Time from Gambit. And when it comes to different archetypes, I still think the aggressive frames are the best middle ground of control, range, clip size, perk options, and availability. Whereas the 900 RPM adaptives and lightweights, they just feel like they fire a little too fast, and you don't get really much out of them before they run out of ammo. And the precision frames, which I know a lot of people will argue for Shayo's Wrath, just feel like they fire a little bit too slowly and they bounce a little bit too much left to right. However, they are a lot better than they used to be. And of course, a special shout out to the Teraba, which is actually one of the most fun weapons in the game that can do special or heavy ammo level damage as a primary ammo weapon. And if you've never heard of it, all you have to do is deal damage or receive damage to get Ravenous Beast going. You activate the perk and you shoot twice as fast, you reload twice as fast, and you do a lot more damage, and you get guaranteed crit anywhere on the body. Truly, this weapon does shred majors quite well. And again, it does it in a primary ammo form, which is generally the issue you have with the highest level play, is you need enough total ammo damage, and since it's primary ammo, it solves a lot of those issues. And this is legitimately something that I have and do use in Grandmaster Nightfalls. Perhaps it's not my first option, but it's definitely feasible, especially if you want to go with overload rounds on SMGs this season. It's very viable. However, it would not be the first raid option that I would get out of the archive. I would still favor more towards Anarchy and of course the Sparrow. Up in the next category, weapons, we have these sidearms. Now, these sidearms, in my opinion, are still doing very well. It's probably my most common comment is that I apparently like sidearms more than I should, but I still really like sidearms. First of all, for the new exotic sidearm, the Cryosthesia in PvE, I don't really know when I'd want to use it. The main argument is going to be against champions in the high-level Nightfalls. However, most of the time, you're going to have special champion rounds to stun them anyways. The fact you have to go get a kill, then freeze them with it, doesn't really seem like it has much purpose. When it comes to the other sidearms, my personal favorite are going to be the 3 burst and 2 burst for their kills per clip. Whereas the other sidearms do suffer a lot more from bloom, which is going to be the expanding of the reticle as you fire. The bursts just seem to fare better at range, even though they are bursts. And as a controller user, that is not something I say very likely. And the reason why I rate sidearms higher than SMGs is because of the kills per clip. Whereas sidearms, you're getting anywhere from 0 to 2 kills per clip on average. These sidearms that are 3 bursts really feel like they get 1 to 4, which is very important. If you use SMGs for any amount of time, you know how often you're reloading. With a sidearm, you reload a lot less often, you end up getting a lot more kills before you have to reload. And with that, I also feel that they have better DPS, better time to kills on average, with a little bit less range. Now, obviously, that range would imply that they're probably not the best item for the highest level play, even though they're currently the only unstoppable legendary option from the artifact. They're just so much fun, so much DPS, and honestly, so much kills per clip that I just love using them. And of course, a special shout out to the Traveler's Chosen, which really helps out in a lot of builds where you need your melee, your grenade, or your class ability on demand. Just one of those weapons that just fits in so many different builds. If you're not doing, for example, Grandmaster Nightfalls, Traveler's Chosen just works. Up in the next major category, we have the auto rifle. And when it comes to the different archetypes of auto rifles, I really like the adaptive frame or 600 RPMs. They have an incredible combination of range, stability, handling, clip size, perk options, availability just across the board. When it comes to their alternatives like the 450s and 360s, they feel like they try a little too hard to be in the dominated zone of the pulse rifles while also having a lot more recoil and flinch. And on the other side, the 720 rapid fires, even with the Chrome Mirage, a lot of people loving that weapon and talking about it, most of the time I'd rather have an SMG for a very similar range with a lot more damage. And when it comes to the adaptive frames, I'm not including Forward Path in this list because it has worse stats, worse availability, and worse perk options on average. It just doesn't feel the same as Nonghunger and the Summoner. So I'm definitely on the lookout for a Kinetic adaptive frame auto rifle in the future, which would really round up this archetype. And with that, a special shout out to the Monte Carlo. It is an excellent use weapon in so many different builds. If you ever need your melee and you want a nice, comfortable adaptive frame-esque kind of weapon, it works incredibly well. Things like Sunbracers, where you need 8 charge melee kills to get a bunch of different solar grenades on the field. This weapon works very well. And finally, when it comes to the major downside of this weapon, is going to be sustained fire. In the highest level play, you want to be able to peek in and out of cover, maintaining your DPS without being as vulnerable. Things like scout rifles, hand cannons, pulse rifles, they do this very well, being able to go in and out of cover without making yourself very vulnerable. The auto rifles, you need sustained fire, and that is what's holding them back from being in the top 3. Although below the highest level play, they're an excellent use weapon across the board. And right here in the middle of the video, I just wanted to take a cute animals break. As you can see on screen right now, there's some cute animals on screen, and truly, it makes me smile every day to look up cute animals, and I wanted to share that with you guys. And also, I wanted to brainwash you because I also wanted to say a special thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Truly, without their help, these videos really wouldn't be possible. I wouldn't be able to spend 10 to 20 hours every week making these spreadsheets, because alternatively, I'd have to get a part-time job, and I wouldn't be able to make these spreadsheets. So if you want to see them continue, please consider checking out my Patreon in the description down below, because without your help, I may have to stop doing these spreadsheets. And I think I made the calculation that if like 0.01% of you gave $10 a month, I'd be able to make minimum wage. And that's all I really want, because I love doing that. And on top of that, I also have a giveaway going on right now, free to enter to get an Astro A10 headset, Blue Yeti microphone, also link in the description down below. Moving on, let's talk about the pulse rifles. Now, the pulse rifles are probably not the most fun type of weapons, but they're definitely a very effective weapon, as they have decent range, decent control, they're easy to understand. And when it comes to my pick of pulse rifles, pretty much the same reasoning as the auto rifles. The adaptive frames have a great combination of range, stability, handling, clip size, availability, perk options, whereas the slower fire rates, even though they technically have more range, end up flinching and bouncing a lot more, so the adaptives effectively reach better range anyways, and the faster fire rates kind of compete in a zone where hand cannons and auto rifles are a lot better anyways. And of course, a lot of people will probably be talking about Grid Skipper, the new rapid fire 540 pulse rifle, and honestly, it is probably the best one we've had yet, but it still competes in that zone from SMGs to auto rifles where it just doesn't feel like my best bet. And inside these adaptive frames, we have so many incredible options. Kinetic slot with Hailing Confusion. We have a bunch of different options for the energy slot with John 7, Blast Perdition, Third Axiom. You're probably getting these all over the place. And I know probably going to be a lot of people talking about Outbreak Perfected having that DPS, and truly I think that Hawkmoon and Teraba are going to be better options when it comes to DPS with primary ammo weapons, that it doesn't add up, and you have to sustain fire on the enemy, and you know what I say about sustain, it's just not worth it. And finally, for the best weapon type pretty much across the entire game in Destiny 2, we have the hand cannons. And perhaps this is a lot more personal to me. I've been a hand cannon whore for the last 5 or 6 years, but truly when you think about Destiny, you probably think about hand cannons, and for a very good reason. Even with their higher skill floor, higher skill ceiling, they're an incredible intersection of range, of damage, of kills per clip, of perk options, of different archetype options. They're just an incredible weapon. I'd highly recommend you get used to them because they're just so useful. And even though, yes, this season they did get a range nerf, which cut their range buff they got last season in half, they're still an excellent option, especially if you have incredible options like Bottom Dollar, True Prophecy, or Fatebringer that has explosive payload. That range nerf really didn't feel like it changed much. And as a controller user, the stickiness at range still feels fine. And when it comes to the 3 different major archetypes of hand cannons, which I wanted to talk about in a little bit more detail, first of all, the Precision Frame 180 RPMs, which are doing a lot better than they used to be. They have like 40% more magazine size. They have incredible options like Posterity and Survivor's Epitaph, which have really good stats on them. However, because of their fire rate, their mag size, they feel a lot more like a sustained weapon like auto rifles, that auto rifles feel like they do better at control and range than these options do. So it feels like a hand cannon not really doing what a hand cannon is meant for. Up next, we have the Adaptive Frame 140 RPMs, which again is a very incredible intersection of controllability, range, fire rate, perk options, kills per clip, just across the board. If you don't know which kind of hand cannons to use, the 140s are probably going to be your best bet, especially as an entry level. And honestly, we have some incredible options. Last season, we got the Palindrome, which also has an adept version with incredible incredible recoil direction, aim assistance, perk options, and it's a void hand cannon, which we were missing void for a really long time. And this season we got Fatebringer, which also has a time loss version, which will probably make it even better on top of its incredible use. Whereas last season we were missing a bit of the Kinetic 140 hand cannons because Dire Promise is not really meant to be a PvE hand cannon. Fatebringer basically just solved all the issues we needed with hand cannons in the 140. And on top of that, it also has a very unique and very powerful perk combination. It can have explosive payload plus a major damage perk like Frenzy and Kill Clip. And if you haven't seen my dedicated video to explosive payload, if you don't know, explosive payload not only reduces the damage fall off by around 45%, it also makes it so you can stun enemies by flinching them, making it a lot easier to hit them with overload rounds, but it also increases the damage. Something that not a lot of people realize, explosive payload increases the damage to body shot and headshot by around 15 to 5%, which especially this season with the range nerf, having more range on top of more damage is so amazing, combined again with another damage perk. So in my opinion, the Fatebringer is going to be the #1 new weapon of this season, just for so many different reasons, and I fully expect it to also do very well in PvP. And finally, as the #1 best weapon type in the game, we have the 120 RPM legendary hand cannons. Now, a lot of people could argue that the Fatebringer and the Palindrome have leveled the 140s above the 120s. However, with the range nerf and the needs of more range in the highest level play, I still think that things like True Prophecy and Bottom Dollar are incredibly useful options, both of which, by the way, can have explosive payload, and they still really help out, which I've said multiple times in the past. You need more range from the highest level play, and the 120s still handle that range very well. Again, especially with explosive payload. I've said this like 4 times now. It is just so useful. And True Prophecy and Bottom Dollar dropping out of Gambit and World Drops and Gunsmith is incredibly useful. You'll get them all the time, and when you get a good version of it, keep it. It's excellent. And the last mention I want to give is going to be to Hawkmoon, which is often seen as more of a PvP weapon, which is an excellent PvP weapon, but also has incredible effectiveness in PvE as well. I've even used it in Grandmaster Nightfall in place of something like Izanagi's Burden, which has a lot better total ammo damage for Hawkmoon, but also still uses primary ammo. However, I have mentioned in the past things like Outbreak Perfected. It's not really that useful because sometimes I'd rather just have a special weapon instead of making it complicated. The Hawkmoon does circumvent that a bit. Firstly, the damage you deal with a Paracausal ×7 is very close to the damage you deal with an Izanagi's Burden ×4 with the Catalyst, which, think about it, they're both kinetic weapons. Izanagi has 5 of those shots, Hawkmoon has like 10 to 12 of those shots, and you get ammo a lot more readily. So in Grandmasters, where total ammo damage is often more useful than DPS, the Hawkmoon really shines. And in the example gameplay you see in the background, I was using it on Prophecy, and through one run through a boss area, I was able to get 2 million total ammo damage, pretty much just entirely from Hawkmoon. Now granted, my teammate was using Falling Star, he got off 2 of those, and he was using Anarchy. 2 million damage in one full boss round is a lot of damage. Probably more damage than most people deal with a lot of really high tier weapons. And that is pretty much the end of the video. I want to say thank you, as well as one more cute animal on screen right now. I want to say thank you for watching all the way to the end of the video. It really does mean a lot. Please let me know in the comments down below if you have any questions, concerns, or you think I made a mistake with my top 10, or if there's a weapon that you think I may have overlooked. But of course, please let me know why, because there's a lot that goes into picking these weapons, how they pair up with certain special and heavy weapons, what slots they occupy, whether it's an exotic will really affect certain weapons, the artifact mods, the peak or sustained fire. There's a lot that really goes into this. And of course, a big thank you to my patrons on Patreon. Without their help, really wouldn't be able to make these kind of videos. Specifically, I want to give a big thank you to Mary Badu, Mom Dad, Charles Williams, Dr. Strange, Joe Smith, Monty, Nana Hopkins, Steve Noise, Justin Ray, Raymond Chunner, Your Panther, Cole Sherm, Casey Reagan, and Badgie for their support on Patreon. And that's going to be the end of it. Hope you guys did enjoy. My name is Dychronic, and I'll see you guys on the next one.